Well, hey there, and welcome to Home Alive. Another week of content for you here. Hope you're doing well in that chat. Good to see you all. Hope you're doing well, and hope your games are getting there. We have 1 week left of the jam to get your submissions in. So crunch time now a little bit. But without further ado, I'm excited today to be joined with Lucas, publishing manager here at HomaJam. So I'm going to welcome him on now. So Lucas, what is up? Thanks for joining with
Hi,
me.
Kevin. Thanks.
Before we get any further, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at Homa? And he's completely frozen for me. That's a good start. Let's try that again. So it looks like the connection is a bit
Yeah,
of a
same.
problem. Is that
Let
okay? So yeah, Lucas will be just fixing the internet a little bit. But yeah, Lucas, I just said, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what you do here at Homa?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the internet gods are not with us today. Um, Let's just see if he jumps back on. That's a really good start to the stream. So he has disappeared. So back to me as normal. So yeah, we got Lucas coming on. He's got a presentation for us lined up. We'll fix that internet. Yeah, so it's going to be talking about Merge Master today, which is very cool. Which, if you didn't know, and I don't want to spoil too much, it was the most downloaded game of the first quarter of this year, and had like 30 million downloads in March. So good to see you all in that chat. If you are liking this content when the internet works and all of that, do give us a like on the video and all that good stuff. We've got some another stream coming up on Friday, and I will take the opportunity here to say thanks to everybody who's joined me on the one-on-ones we've had over the last couple of weeks. There is still a few slots left. If indeed you want to if you want to come and join me for some feedback. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, I think
Uh,
it's okay right now.
yeah, okay. So let's try and bring Lucas back on now. See if this is going to work for us. There we go. Here he is. So Lucas, before the internet dies again on us, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do here at Homa?
Yeah, first of all, sorry everyone. We have some Wi-Fi issues, but we will soon change offices and have a better one. Very glad to be here. I'm Lucas, publishing manager at HomaJam for a year and a half right now. Published a few games, and the last one was Merge Master. Delighted to make a small deconstruction about this game today, and of course answer all Kevin's questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So like I was trying to not to do too many spoilers while you were away trying to fix the internet, but I think what we'll do while we've got this good connection, I'm going to hand over to you now, and you can start your presentation for us, and we'll come back on and have a chat about that. Sound good?
Good. So, as I spoiled, today's talk gonna be around Merge Master. I was PM on it, and I wanted to share some insights with all of you. Can you, yeah, about the game overview to give you a bit of numbers around what we call this as a success story. We went number one in Android and stayed there for almost 2 or 3 weeks. 7 on iOS, where the scale was a bit lower than on Android. Wanted to highlight that it was done thanks to a lot of work from the Graph team, a huge creative work with 400 concepts, with a lot of wins there, enabling us to grow as a profitable scale, which is something pretty noticeable here, and 65 million downloads so far, and 15 to 20 very similar game raised in the market. But thanks to our UA team, we managed to keep Merge Master as the leader of this merge new game genre. About the agenda, I will first speak about the game ideation. I think it's very interesting for you guys to gather some insights around this, because this is what makes this market so tough, but also super interesting. Always trying to find some new ideas, and that's a bit the theme of our jam. to revamp a bit the past, and that's something we did on Merge Master. So I thought it was interesting to discuss this. Then we will quickly speak about the game scale. How did we do that? How we managed to keep the game profitable? And then my favorite part is the game thoughts. Why did this game work? What can we think about this game? And I'm pretty sure Kevin will have some good insights to share on this that I may have forgotten. About the game ideation, it was first a product iteration and then a CPI iteration. If you want the entire story, the studio named Fuzi, two guys super experienced in Turkey and very skilled, and I were working together for 6 months. We tested a lot of stuff, but we really wanted to make a puzzle game because we knew these games could have very interesting retention, playtime, and be able to scale on a very long-term basis, which was exactly what we were looking for. Though we also know these games have pretty bad CPI, and it's very difficult to scale them without finding the right formula in terms of creative. What we did was to first choose a merge mechanic that we thought was interesting. Then we decided to mix it with new characters, not only stickmans. We wanted to really attract the player eyes in some point, and we didn't really know what kind of characters could work. But we had the idea about dinosaurs because they are extremely trendy for all ages. Everybody loves dinosaurs, and there is a collective imaginary around them, which is interesting. At the time, Netflix launched a series named TV show named Hellbound, so we tried Hellbound characters, humor characters, woman characters, merge, etc., etc. And we found pretty fast, and you can see it basically on the test campaigns, the right formula with the dinosaurs. And after 4 tests, we decided to move to iteration in the game because we had some very interesting in-game stats as well. Maybe Kevin, you want to start discussing this?
Yeah, sure, of course. So obviously a massive hit on this, and I think what was really cool about that is how. What was the decision early on to go away from like the classic sort of stickman look? Was that something that was you said you wanted to change? Why did you want to change that particularly?
There were already some games on merge mechanic on the market, and we spotted them, and we thought mechanic is interesting because it's completely infinite. Though uh, people are really looking for something in term of creatives, and we thought, and that's gonna be on why the game worked on the next part. But basically, that looking for curiosity around dinosaurs, which have beautiful shapes, is what people want to see and want to do. If you take a stickman, you have very limited evolutions, and this is a merge evolution game, so that was a bit the trick here.
Yeah, that makes a
It
lot
could
of
have worked
sense.
with other shapes.
Yeah, did you try what like you mentioned? So you did some other tests on that. Did you? What was? Did anything come close, or was like Dinos like the just a knockout winner straight away?
Not a knockout winner, good question, but enough to be sure this one, the ones we had to scale with. Basically, the other ads were like 10 cents more. So all the game was kind of marketable, but the best ad was with dinosaurs. And then we saw with new actors in the market taking exactly the same concept and the same creatives that basically other shapes can work as well. I've seen some games with insects, with castles, with dragons, which were scaled as well. So I think it's not a matter only of dinosaurs, but also of how you show the creative. And we made a huge focus on math, but I'm gonna speak a bit about it later.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think what the real key interesting part about here is that you said because you chose this dinosaur, it could have been a monster or something. You've got all these variations that you where you can take the game. Rather than if it was just a stickman, there's only so many things you can do with it. I guess you could dress him up or something, but that's way less exciting than transforming and evolving a dinosaur. And yeah, I think it's always worth thinking about when you're building this concept. Like, where can you take it? You don't have to have all the answers and have it all figured out, but if it's got some legs in how you can scale it up is really interesting. We just seen in the chat there, like anyone who's played Merge Master, a lot of people most definitely will have done. You mentioned it was a two-person team there. What it seemed like a lot of game for two people. What was the sort of? I don't want to get ahead of anything here, but what was the sort of time scale on the development on this one?
We spent 2 months between the first test and when we sent the game in iteration, knowing that during these 2 months there was 1 full month of CPI iteration and then 2 weeks of gameplay iteration. Once we found the right formula, and that is why these games are so interesting as well. You can build 100 levels in a week if you have some talented developers, and that's basically what we had. And thanks to Fuzzy, they managed to do this very well.
And I think it speaks volumes to your input as well, because I know the studios obviously are doing the lion's share of the work, but what's I think is often neglected is the role that you play in this game, and others and all the publishing managers, of how you guide people and how you assist them. What do you think? What do you reckon is your superpower when it comes to being a publishing manager?
Being convincing, convinceful, I think that's the most important. I was really lucky to have a super good relationship with Sinan and Mehmet. I don't know if they look at this live stream, but basically they put a lot of trust in me and myself the same. And I think this relationship is super important. But as a PM, you need to be very convincing when you have an idea, like I had for this one. Uh, I think I froze again.
Yeah, it's a bit choppy today. Our internet is really horrible, but we'll barge through it. But I think the overwhelming sort of upshot of all that was that Lucas was really impressing his ideas on the team, and because the relationship was good, they trusted him enough to go with it. But of course, all the publishing managers have a lot of experience here, and they've seen tests that worked before, and they can pull from that knowledge, and that's the additional value add that they add here.
If if I can deep dive a bit, because I think this question is interesting for developers looking at us. I think this is also a question of trust between PM and studio, but also a question of how you can be fast in making new concepts, and that's basically what we did. Like I said, we spent 6 months having pretty okay or bad CPI together, but we never lose any faith in us and in our ability to, at some point, publish a game and publish a very good game. And so we were able to test almost 4 games per month with a 2 people team, enabling us at some point, and it's basically stats when you test good game with a good team, to find the right formula and finally scale a game fast like that. So
Yeah,
trust,
go
being
on.
fast, and as a PM, trying to be very convincing.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think it's good to set some expectations here, to say, your first game is very unlikely to be the one that's going to work, but that relationship that's built up, and and the Homa structure of only having a small amount of studios to deal with, gives you the time and energy to really work with the developers, and I think that's such a big thing for everything that we do here at Homa, is that you have the experience and the time to help the developers out. Um, when How do you deal with stuff when, how do you deal with it when a prototype doesn't work? Let's go totally way off tangent here. If one of the games isn't working, um, what's the sort of how do you manage that expectation?
From the devs,
Yeah,
it depends. We are quite lucky. We're in an industry where stats are speaking for themselves. So sometimes we don't even have to discuss the game. When you have $2 CPI, basically there is nothing to do, or almost nothing to do. So it doesn't happen much. The most tricky situation is when you do a lot of tests on a game, but you really think this game can work, but you never manage to find a good CPI or right gameplay formula, which is a bit a bit more tricky, but again, trust between PM and studio and ability to really discuss in very all transparency around things uh, push us to be better persons, better professionals, and to stop developing games when we feel like there is no more potential, and maybe come back to it later. That's also a way, and that's also why we did this jam at the end. It's quite rare to find a very new mechanic in the market right now. So it's a lot of risking, rethinking the entire old mechanics, and the market is changing a lot. One CPA you had in February can be super high or super low right now. You don't really know how the market will evolve. So when you had a very good game, it's always worth to retest it at some point after a few months if you felt like you were missing a good opportunity.
Yeah, super pro tip there. I think we could. I don't want to derail us because I think you and me could talk for hours on this stuff. So what I'm going to do before we go, pass back over to you. If you've got questions, do put them in that chat, and we'll get Lucas to answer them as best he can for you. But Lucas, I'm going to hand back over to you now, and you can continue on the next part of the presentation.
So I continue? Yeah. Okay. Here I'm gonna speak about the first test and the soft launch, but I already spoke a bit about it. We ran 5 tests with many learnings. Here, Kevin, you can see the Hellbound Creative and the Dinosaurs with 10 cents difference and the 10 best cents, I think, because going from 42 to 32 really makes your game very marketable. And today, dinosaurs with math formula are still the best spending. And if you look at other games being scaled on the same jar, they are exactly the same. When we went to iteration phase, it's quite interesting because we tried to make it very fast. When we find the right gameplay, we wanted to really polish the in-game metrics. Very classic use of game analytic and some data analysis, but the stats were super interesting, and we could see the churn by level. And it's a very RV based game, so it enabled us to find where to put the most of churning points in order to push the most of RVs possible. And to do this, we had to find the right economy formula. I really want to insist on the economy because this is, I think, where Fusey, the studio, was the best. Basically, we tested 12 economies in less than 4 weeks, and it was incredibly big wins sometimes. I'm gonna come back on it, but I can show you right now. When you test economy, it can be a big win in a way or in another way. And basically, testing these economies on a merge game, on a puzzle game, is incredibly important to find the right formula. And you have to retest your economy and your progression every month, as long as your player basis is evolving for different networks. Sometimes the players are behaving very differently also from a country to another. So you have to test by country, by regions, and retesting the A/B test many times over time. Then we wanted to understand the player behavior and the frustration points. Not the best thing to do, as we were really blocking some players at some levels which were in the economy longer to pass. So you can fail again, win some money and pass the level, or you can fail 1 time or 2 times, watch an RV and pass the level. Then we added a lot of levels, but I did already speak about it. We worked a lot on the performances, and that's also why very good studios are so appreciable to work with. Game never lagged. We had absolutely no bug on every devices on the world, and a very, very, very low crash rate, which was super cool. And then we A/B tested, of course, a lot the monetization. Didn't want to put a lot of IS in it, as RVs were really, really functioning well, the difficulty, the frustration, and different rewards. Any questions on this, Kevin?
Yeah, so I wanted to leave it on this slide, excuse me, because I think it's really cool to see the 40 cent CPI and the 32 next to each other there, because the game is the same, right? But it's just that difference between the monster and the dino. And the actual, the action of the hand and the line drawn, it's almost identical apart from the environment and the content, shall we say. And I think that's really interesting to see. So yeah, sometimes you think, oh well, we didn't get such a good result, but some of the small tweaks, is literally a 25% drop in CPI, which is unbelievable. The other thing I wanted to touch on there from that one really was the fact of how many blooming tests you did on the economy, and I think that's pretty insane. And kudos to the devs for pulling that off, especially as bug free as you said. What's really powerful about everything that we do in terms of the testing is exactly this sort of stuff. I mean, I'm sure a lot of developers wouldn't even think about going this sort of into the minutia like this of testing different economies, let alone how many you did. How much help do we give developers in terms of this kind of stuff? How much guidance do we give them on like tech support and implementation, shall we say?
Yeah, so we were lucky to have data analysts from Homa Games helping us also to design the events and stuff. But again, experienced team, so they already knew how to do that kind of stuff. Basically, what we did, if you want to go a bit in detail, is we designed the full tab, Excel tab, with all the values of the game per level. Then we just changed these values 12 times in order to find the right formula. And then we A/B tested everything and we found some good wins. So that's
That's
how we did.
insane.
And in term of tech, of course, we had all the support we needed, but not really on the economy. And for data, we tried very permissive, very tough, some in between economy, and that's how we found the right one.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people would even think that this was a thing. But yeah, I mean, everything within the games are tested to an inch of their life to have it maximum performing, and a little nudge here and there can have such a difference on the LTV and stuff. Um, in terms of the overall, I mean, did you say that you did 100 tests in like 4 weeks or something?
No, A/B test. A/B
Yeah, yeah,
test.
that's what I meant.
Like 50, yeah, okay, yeah, 50 A/B tests in 4 weeks. Yes, but it
That's
was on very
insane.
low cohort, and we had sometimes almost 1 million installs per day. So it's just a big pleasure to make A/B tests on this because you have super big cohorts of players, so you can take learnings very fast. When you have 1K players per day, you really need to wait a lot in order to take accurate decisions on your A/B test. So it was something very very important here, I think, and which helped us a lot.
Yeah, I mean, having that huge data set to work with just makes everything a ton easier to ascertain exactly what's working. That must have been really exciting for you.
It was, yeah, it was because we are always looking for games like that, and especially this one. What I love is we did it in very hyper casual way. Like we first thought about what could be the core gameplay. When we found the right core gameplay, we decided to move on the marketability side. So what can bring to this a very good CPI, and once we found a very good CPI, we had the core gameplay done. So we basically had only to add levels, work on the economy, and thought about some crazy features a bit, of course, but we didn't have to make the game at this point. And that was something.
Oh, okay. That was a little bit jittery there. I think what we'll try before I got the internet goes anymore, I'm going to hand back to you for your next section of the slides, and then we'll jump back on again. Sound cool?
Game thoughts. Why does it work? That's the $1 million question, and I know it, but it's super interesting, I think, to try to think about why this game works. Basically, according to me, and I think Kevin, you will have some super interesting insights, and in the chat as well. And if you have some very interesting to read them. Basically, mathematics, we didn't speak a lot about it, but these are extremely important. If you look at every ads which are scaling at the moment on merge game, they are all done based on fake ads, which are math. Um, that's something I want to highlight, because if you want to play the game math based, it's basically impossible to play it. That's the first gameplay we tried with the devs, and it basically doesn't work. So we moved to something else which is working, but we kept it into the ads and play. And people, that's something that everybody knows in hyper casual, especially in puzzles. You show a lot of fails in order for people to feel very smart. And I think that's exactly what worked here. Like everybody in the world, almost everybody knows how to make an addition and feels rewarded by making a good addition in the game. And basically, that's how we started to think about the math thing in the game. And today again, it's still working. And yeah, I put some example where we use math such as Arrowfest or Snake versus Block. Two, collective imaginary. That's something a bit easy to say after the war, I would say, because honestly, we didn't really know that dinosaurs could work like that. And then when you look back a bit on, for example, books for children or documentaries or even most downloaded games or watched movies, dinosaurs are almost everywhere. So I think in the collective imaginary, there is something super important about dinosaurs, and especially with an evolution game, which brings me to the third point, which is curiosity. You always want to see what's going to be the next dinosaur's shape. Nobody saw dinosaurs and being alive today. So basically, we have all an imagination about how they looked, and we wanted to make them the most hyper casual possible. So we decided to take very flashy colors and to have a real evolution in the dinosaurs when you go on further levels in order to arrive to a final tyrant. And four, last but really not least, it's about this instant reward at every level, which empowers the players. Basically, this is a second game into the game. And I know for a fact, seeing some people playing this game and being super happy to watch this RV at the end by clicking on the multiply 5. So that's something which at the beginning we didn't think it would work well, but at the end, that was one of the most performing RV into the game. One thing we added, and I was happy about it, is buy 10 every 2 or 3 levels, and it performed absolutely huge in A/B tests, because for players who are not watching RVs, when they see the buy 10, they are like, okay, this is my chance to take the RV, so they basically take it.
Very nice. Yeah, I think I'll just leave you on this slide for just a minute, because I think there's some really great points on this slide. And what's kind of funny to me is like when you talk about mathematics, it's like normally you think like, especially when you're kids in school, it's like, oh, maths, oh no, like this is so boring. But actually, when you break down a lot of these games, the maths, like you said, plays a huge role in a lot of these. And you, obviously with our Snake versus Blocks being one of the sort of first ones, but also when we see these choice gates now, certainly the early choice gate games, they had the multipliers in there like times two divided by, and all of that when you boil it down is maths. So, do you think maths can work still okay now? Do you think it's a solid mechanic for someone to add in their game?
Yeah, I do. I do think, especially for creatives, huh? But use of math is definitely something of simple math, because we tested 1,000 different variations of math
Wow.
things, multiplication, subtraction, etc., with the creatives team, and basically it was only addition and very simple one which were working. Math is here like really a basis of showing how the gameplay works. If people don't want to play a merge game with dinosaurs, they will definitely not download the game just because it's math. But the combination of the three elements, according to me, but we never know, makes them downloading the game.
Yeah, that's very cool, and like wow, 1,000 different ones. But yeah, I think the simplicity of it, I think, is really crucial here, because there has been a few games that I've played where I don't know what they did. It was like divided by six or something. And it's like my brain exploded. I just couldn't deal with, the thing was coming towards me and I had to really think about it. And I think that's the problem. So keep it simple. And we've spoken a lot about relatability over these last few weeks on all the talks, really. And one thing is with maths, aside from anything else, everybody understands it. Everyone understands times two or plus 60. Everyone gets that concept. I'm going to flick back to the slide again because I really liked what you said about the dinosaurs being that you didn't really know about the dinosaurs in as such being such a win, but when you start looking around, dinosaurs are kind of everywhere. Um, and the the bit I wanted to pick up on really was the way that you decided to go get more of a realistic vibe rather than like a super cartoony. Was there any consideration or any test done for a really sort of like cute cartoony versus the real ones?
Yeah, basically, I have no credit on this. It's the studio who chose these assets, and I think it was a very good choice. To be honest, we tried afterward in creative to use some very cute assets, very tiny ones, animals, etc. But basically didn't really work. Again, I think it's a bit this thing around curiosity. Like people, of course, they want a lot of cuteness and they want to relax in a game, but here the fight is extremely simple and not bloody at all, etc. So we have a bit of a mix for like hardcore players. They come into the game because they see a beautiful shape they are used to play with in RPG games or battle mode games. And we go also for American people, not obviously super gamer people, but which see like beautiful colors, beautiful shapes, and beautiful art at the end, and makes them downloading. But we tried, and other developers tried with very similar games, but I didn't see one scaling with like very cute elements.
Wow. Unbelievable, isn't it? So, yeah, we've seen a little bit of the more realistic graphics creeping into some of the games of late. The ones that go all out realistic don't tend to do that well, I've seen. I mean, Boom Bit do a lot of like really realistic, which is sort of hyper casual games, but I think this mix of sort of semi-real. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of half and half really. Seems to go down really well. I just want to jump back as well once again to the curiosity part. Um, and I think this is massive. So I'm sharing the screen just to remind myself as much as everybody who's watching. But it's the fact that and it's a really powerful game design element where you go like I've got to see what's coming next, and it's like as old as the hills. And I think the merge games and especially merge master really lean into this. Did the devs struggle with the content here? Because that obviously the more content you have, the more work it is if you're constantly evolving. Was there any particular challenges on that side of things?
Not that much because we decided since the beginning to go for 15 shapes for soldiers and dinosaurs. How did we think about curiosity? Honestly, Kevin, it's a very good question, but it's something that people really are looking for in video games and especially in hyper casual. A lot of games are based either on the satisfaction of the core gameplay, where you want to play again for sometimes years on games. Some of them are really based on the challenge, but not that much in hyper casual. And some of them are just based on curiosity. What's gonna be my next shape? If the core gameplay is working well, putting people to okay, what's gonna be the next shape? And 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 I think also in like some groups, you show merge master to a friend. He's level 100, you are level 300, and you can show him and be like, okay, look what I just unlocked, and you never unlocked this. And so there is a bit of a way of, okay, I really want to go to the next shape. I know another thing, because it's quite crazy sometimes, but and I want to highlight him. No chance he sees this video, but we received a message from a young kid 2 months ago asking us to add some levels because he was at level 1200 and the
Okay.
game was completely bugged at this point. And we loved this message, and it made us thought a lot about the economy, but also the curiosity behind the game, but also the general satisfaction you have by playing it. We didn't take time to really, and we didn't want to embarrass him, but to ask him like, okay, what do you like in this game? But basically, there is definitely something around curiosity and sense of achievement. Every time you pass a level in Merge Master, you unlock a new shape, you have a new enemy, and you have a new challenge basically. But this challenge gonna be filled with your new creatures. And so there is a mix around this. It's okay, I'm making my army, and my army is evolving a lot, as well as the enemies. What's going to be my next shape, and how this next character will help me to beat this new opponent I have in front of me.
That's insane that someone got so far, like basically completed it. That's mad, isn't it? So you're like a super fan there. There's a couple of questions I want to get to here in the chat. Banneker says, I'm experimenting with voxels. Simple designs, nothing fancy. Should I continue or switch to stick figures and primitives?
Difficult to say without seeing the game. Honestly, I can't give an advice like that because I don't want you to take the wrong decision. But happy to see what you are currently working on. You can write me, and I will try to give you my best
Yeah,
insights.
it's a really difficult one to answer that, and the only thing with voxel is that because we haven't seen voxel being a trend for so long, there's a chance that you might ignite that trend again if you've got a really compelling gameplay. But the whole point of this is like we test, so maybe do two versions on your video and see if one of them pops. Um,
That's exactly Yeah, that's a very good point, Kevin. As an advice, if you make 6 videos for your CPI and you can try 6 very different characters or even level design and stuff, colors, try it. CPI is to take some learnings, and that's the best way to gather some learnings.
Yeah, you just don't know, and what anyone says, someone will say opposite, and someone else will be right or wrong. It's really difficult to tell. And Farouk says, why did you give dinosaurs and other merged characters a fantasy look, unlike an ancient or old era look that they belong to that era, that era? Sorry, right. So why did you give them a fantasy look rather than a more of a realistic type look? I think is what the question is.
Why did I give them a fancy look to the dinosaurs?
More of a fantasy, so more of a
Ah,
mythical look rather than like a realism sort of look. I think.
yeah. Well, realism on dinosaurs is quite difficult. I think I froze again.
Yeah, I think more of a traditional look is probably a better
Yeah.
word, but yeah.
I think I froze again. Okay, no, that's a very good question. Again, it was a choice by the developers, but basically, realistic is very difficult on dinosaurs because we don't really know how they looked for now, what colors they had, etc. So that's a bit difficult. And fantasy is, I love this word. I never used this word for merge, but basically it's a bit the same as in my previous slide around curiosity. With fantasy, you have a collective imagination of, okay, this shape maybe existed, maybe not, but I want to see what's going to be the next one. It's a bit about drawing, people seeing some drawings and loving them. Here, I think it's really the depth spirit which bring the fantasy into these dinosaurs. But
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, sometimes the decisions are just made because of a personal choice, and if it works, then it works. So, I think that's answered that pretty well. If for like we talked about a little bit, where the cartoon version wasn't working at all, then it would have been the decision would have been to mix it up anyway. Jurassic World Domination just released, so having dinos is a plus, I suppose. That raises a good point, really. Um, do you often see organic lifts when these sort of, or do we lean into any sort of particular promotion when these things come out? Do we change our creatives up?
When we scaled the game first, did we see some
Well,
organics?
it's more to do. It's a little bit off off beat again, but because the new Jurassic World film has just been released, and would the creative team, or would you be pushing for the creative team to be trying out some sort of tie-in with that?
No, because we started the game development way before that the announce was released, and I'm not sure if the movie had that much of success. I think if you want to link something to a very cultural media, it can be a movie, a book, a TV show, whatever, something which has a success, it has to be an incredible success. I remember very well Hellbound. Everybody was throwing characters of Hellbound because we thought it would be the new Squid Game on Netflix, and basically it worked, but not as much as Squid. So now we didn't really think about it. Of course, the creative team used it a lot because and right now, if there is a dinosaurs park opening in the US, of course we will try to use it as well. But no, and I wouldn't advise honestly to take decisions on game ideation based on trendy cultural elements because it's very short in time,
Yeah.
and you might do a lot of downloads, but you won't have time to work on your game, and basically the core gameplay might not be satisfying enough to keep your game scaling over the time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Excuse me. It's very high risk, basically. You've got that short period of time where you might jump on that trend, and you could see some success. Sure, we saw a lot of Squid Games do well. Squid Game 2 is just coming up as well, by the way. So just a heads up on that. That might be worth a pun. But the point is that, excuse me, um, you've got a very narrow window of time where that's really going to be popular. There's a few caveats to that. Squid Game probably being the biggest one of recent times, where that craze is that it carried on, and there was. I mean, Squid Game was the perfect storm where it just fits so well to make a game from it because it was a game. But yeah, I agree with Lucas. Don't try and chase trends that much unless you can really gamify it to a point where it will stand on its own without that lift in pop culture. I just want to try and just a sec, real quick here. There's a ton of Bomberman stuff in the chat, and I'm trying to work out what it means. Um, I'm experimenting. Oh, because it's a Bomberman game for the voxels. Yeah, sorry about that. I was just reading the chat. So voxels might work for the Bomberman game. I know this is real random, Lucas. I just wanted to address that from the chat. So I think you've got a couple more slides for us. Shall we jump back into that?
Just just the actually I finished, Kevin. Just
Oh, okay.
the slide around the A/B test around the economy and the progression, but I already showed you big cohorts and pretty interesting wins sometime.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that sort of stuff, right? I think if what one thing that if you could go back to your the one with the rewarded video, because I think we should touch on that before we start wrapping up today. Yeah, this instant reward at every level, and I really like that. So if you could, yeah, it's just a few.
Sorry, where is
It was the one with the
it?
spin wheel, the instant reward at every level. So you're literally just towards the last slide you were on. That's it. So
Yeah.
the gamification of the rewarded video. You mentioned that it really people really responded to that. I think these ones. This is a particularly nice looking one. What's the sort of tests that go into these sort of things? How many variations would you do of this sort of gamification of a rewarded video?
Honestly, first time I tried something like that. And here it works because it's incredibly linked to the gameplay. Like if you want to progress fast in Merge Master, you need to take the by five and to move forward. I think it worked for few reasons. First one is we put a very low IS pressure, especially on first levels, and especially if people are watching RVs. So even if they are not after 5, 6, 7 levels, they are so used, to have an IS, they don't. So they are more willing to watch an RV. And as this RV is gamified, you understand that it's going to bring you a lot. What we did with this is we basically gave the 2 or 3 first RV wheel for free. So we just showed players, okay, this is something that will help you in your game life with Merge Master, and after that, of course, we put it into RVs. Plus, we added the buy 10. But this wheel and the way the developers designed it with very small reward when you click, when you stop before the RVs, so you really understand. Okay, I did the buy 5, and I'm gonna have a lot of rewards here. Is interesting because it's linked to the gameplay. Like honestly, putting a wheel, for example, on a runner, where we just buy skins, with cash coins. I'm not sure this wheel at the end of the level would work as good as here, where basically if you don't watch it, you don't progress.
Yeah, that's super interesting to me. And yeah, it's sort of I'm a massive component of trying to give the first one or two away for free to get the player involved
Mm.
in that part of the game. So, oh, I get this for free. Oh, that's great, amazing. Then you get another one, and then the next time they know how much influence that makes on their game. They know how good it and beneficial it is, and then they decide to watch the video for it. So it's so powerful that I don't see that done half as many times as I would like. Um, I always bang on about like give the stuff away for free at the start, just the first one, just to let the player know that it works. But no one seems to does it. They just waz you with a rewarded video straight away for the sake of a color change on a prefab or something. Just give that one give it away straight away and get the player involved in it. Same with if you take them to a shop. So I think that's really smart, and that's really good to see the numbers sort of back that up, that sort of that idea up a little bit from my side of things, because I think it's really quite an obvious thing to do for me. And you shared so many cool things today. Thank you so much for all of that. I know we had a bit of
Thanks to you.
trouble on the internet and whatnot, but that's life and that's the
Yeah,
nature of
sorry. Yeah.
this. No, not your fault. It's just it is what it is. I'd love to wrap up with any closing thoughts you might have, or any tips that you could sort of give to anybody who's thinking about, like your golden tip, that your go-to tip that you could give to people when developing. I know it's a bit of a big question, but any sort of small tips that you think aren't said very often that you find are really important.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, to be honest. Very large question, but I
Yeah.
would say, try to think market, try to think CPI first. It's the most important. You will think about retention and play time a bit later. You and your PM will always find ways, honestly, to find a retention or a playtime. The most important right now is for hyper casual, the CPI, trying to make your games viral on TikTok, that kind of stuff. So to do this, honestly, what I was answering to the first question, there is no need to make a CPI test with 6 videos which are showing basically the same thing, or just a second part of the gameplay, or just another skin or other color. You really need to think about first CPI. I will test 5, 6, 10 videos, whatever. I'm gonna try to make 3 different games in order to take the decision on what's gonna be the best game out of all of these, even if it takes a bit more time. That's the first thing. So really thinking CPI, but I know everybody in the market is doing it. Second thing, is really trying to understand if your core gameplay is working well. Uh, Again, there is no way to go in CPI if your core gameplay is not working, and sometimes we experience this. So just try to make some proof of concept within 2 or 3 days without any art, just the core mechanic. Is it working well? Yes or no? What should I twist? Do people understand what I'm doing when I'm doing this, etc., etc.? And if it doesn't work, just try to switch your game, kill it, and go on something else. Third point, which is very linked to this, but it's very difficult as we are in an entertaining industry where we put a lot of ourselves in our products and in our games, but we have to be the less sensitive possible. Market is speaking for us, data is speaking for us, and if a game doesn't work, there is no point to test. We all have to be on the same boat of, okay, we want to make hit games, and to do this, we need to know how to kill a game, stop working on it, how to switch very fast on the production pipeline if your game you feel like the core gameplay is not working, and trying to be the most diverse in terms of videos and content we will show to the players.
Amazing advice there, and yeah, I obviously I agree completely. I mean, that's super sound advice, and I think really, don't fall in love with your game and just test everything. And I really like the idea of making sure your game is fun before you go any further. Make sure your core's good and test everything. There's just one last question that's come in from Ryan. How much long-term support does Homa offer for for their games?
How long? What? Sorry.
So how long's let me read it out again. How much long-term support does Homer do for their games?
Lifetime.
Right.
Lifetime, honestly. We yeah, as long as the game is making money, we're in business after all, and as long as the game is making money, we update it, try to find some new wins in CPI, and work a lot on VLTV with the UA team. So honestly, all time, it's also why we have so many people in this industry and why people are very interested by this market, because after 4 or 5 years your game can still bring a very decent amount of money every month without from a publisher having to do a lot of stuff on the game. So yeah, lifetime. But if you want a better answer, I would say sometimes it's between 1 year and 5 years that the games are still generating money, and it changed. A game published 5 years ago is very different from a game published today. So hopefully in 1 year we have this talk again, Kevin, and we can share some numbers around the Merge Master, which will be still generating as much as today. Market will speak, but no, it should be pretty stable over time.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And yeah, I'll hold you to that, by the way. So you shouldn't have said that. But I think that goes back to a little bit of what we said about jumping on the trends and the longevity and the shelf life, the natural shelf life of the games. In terms of we will do if the game's still making money, then it's a partnership and it's in both of our interest if it's making money to continue doing it. And you see a lot of games in the charts that have been around there a long, long time because they're still making money. So as long as it's both viable for both parties, then it's forever is right. But I like the idea of like 1 to 5 years as a realistic kind of shelf life overall. All right, I'm going to start to wrap that up. Do say thank you to Lucas in the chat there and say thanks for coming on and sharing all that info. If you're liking this sort of content, be sure to hit that like button on the YouTube thingamabob and all that kind of stuff. We do have one more stream for you coming up on Friday. And if you haven't done already, go ahead and jump on the Discord. And yeah, you can still book a slot there with me to get some feedback on your game. Lucas, thank you so much for joining with me today.
Thanks to you, Kevin. Thanks to everyone who watched this. Hope it was interesting and a bit insightful, and happy to answer questions on LinkedIn if you have some. Very happy.
Yeah, it's so interesting to get all your guys' insights and sharing all of this and congrats on the success as well. I mean, it's
Thanks.
simply astonishing amount of downloads. The most downloaded hyper casual game of the first 3 months of 2022. So I don't know what else to say about that. It's a huge win. And loads of thanks coming in. Good to see everybody in that chat. Get yourself over to the Discord. And don't forget to join us live on Friday, where we will be joined by Ivan for another one of these. So thanks everyone, and we will see you next time.